This is Heme.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support this show. We appreciate your support. Hello.
Hi, friend. How are you?
Good. Do you want to get right into it?
I suppose so.
Okay.
I don't have any fun, charming anecdotes.
Excellent, because I have many
Oh,
here.
boy.
I'm going to start with a lighter one, and then I'll get to the heavy stuff, including the United Methodist Church, which had a big week somehow.
Oh, yeah?
But let me start with this story out of Georgia, because I will tell you, in August of 2022, there was a guy, a local businessman, his name is Steve Duke, and he asked the city of Thomaston, Georgia, for basically, he wants to open up his own shop there. And the local community's like, yeah, we like businesses coming into our community.
Sure.
What do you need? He's like, well, my store is called Duke's Wine and Spirits. And they're like, yeah, we don't care. That's fine.
Okay.
But you need a liquor license. That takes a while to get.
Sure.
And there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through, as any, I'm sure, sports bar, any type of place would have to
Sure,
go
the
through.
only other place that people drink you can think of is a sports bar. Yes, I understand who you are.
Yes, thank you. So, in April of 2023, about 6-7 months later, the store was ready to open.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs the final approval. The state has to give him permission for the liquor license, but whatever, that's customary.
Sure.
But then, before the store was ready to open, a church opens up down the street. And then, like a few months later in the summer of last year, another church opens up nearby. And again, who cares? They can open up. None of that would be a problem, except Georgia has a law prohibiting the sale of alcohol, and I'm quoting here, within 100 yards of any church building.
Oh, my God.
That's
to
the law
what end?
That's the law in Georgia.
Like, I get schools, but a
Right.
church? Like, where else are they going to get their wine?
Yes, and what do you think these people want to do after a service?
Oh, fair. No, they want to go to Denny's and not tip their server.
So both of those churches set up shop within 100 yards of this store that had not yet opened but was about to open. And so this raises some obvious questions. Did those two churches plan to set up shop right next door to the proposed liquor store?
That sounds insidious.
In order to thwart him from opening the liquor store?
Oh,
Or was this just a huge coincidence?
I'm sorry. Is the first thing something you're genuinely proposing, that there's a massive conspiracy of the Christian religion to open two churches within an unopened liquor store?
I mean, that also means those two churches are within feet of each other.
Well, I mean, 200 yards of each other if they're on either. That is too many churches per capita.
That makes sense if it's selling a mattress or something. I get why, or Starbucks, fine. But two churches next door to each other, you don't need. But Duke responded to that theory on Facebook this month, because he still doesn't have a liquor license as of May of 2024, or I should say, April of 2024. Yep. He said on Facebook, "Are there unusual circumstances that appear to be outside of what one would consider coincidental? Absolutely, there have been, but there is no proof. I have no desire to see anyone harassed or intimidated at either of these churches." And when local reporters asked both churches, are you doing this on purpose? What are you doing
There's
here?
no fucking way they're doing it on purpose.
Church 1 did not respond to any of the
Because it's a stupid thing to ask.
But the second guy, I will read you from the local news report here. Here's what he said. Faith Tabernacle Ministries pastor Kevin Hobbs helps lead his congregation of about 25 parishioners. They worship every Sunday and Thursday across from Duke's business. Hobbs explained that what happens next is a separation of church and state. Quote, "I take a stand against alcohol because that's what my faith is.
No!
But this ain't up to me." But if it was up to him.
No.
If it was up to him when he was looking for a place to open up his church, it's not like the store was a secret. And Hobbs did not seem to care that Steve Duke, the guy opening the liquor store, is a Christian, is a person of faith, is an unabashed Christian.
Is it okay? This feels like a guy who stumbled into a fun coincidence that lets him be holier than thou and is just goosing it. That's my...
Possibly.
Because that is fucking insane. insane, Hammond.
Let's say
I'm gonna-
it is a coincidence, and now this guy's just milking it for the publicity,
Yes.
and like, oh, I get a chance to talk about how alcohol is evil in the name of Jesus. I'll take you up on that.
Sure. Christians are nothing if not enterprising.
Even if you wanted to do that, then the question remains, the law that says you can't open up a liquor store within 100 yards of a church, well, who was here first? Obviously, the guy opening the liquor store. And should that matter to the state? Like, well, he was here first. Everyone said, yeah, everything he's doing is legal and by the book. So if a church sets up shop, literally, let's say, next door to him, does the law still apply if the liquor store got there first and got all the approvals they needed?
Yeah, it's almost like when they try to make laws surrounding morality and religion, things get really murky and complicated, and it's just a bad idea.
So here's the thing. When state officials got all the paperwork, because, again, what's not in dispute is who got here first.
Sure.
Steve Duke did. The city of Thomaston approved the local liquor license well before the churches got there. They just needed the state's stamp of approval before he could open up his place.
So he's caught in the red tape.
Yeah, there's some red tape, but expected red tape.
Sure.
Because you got to wait a while for the state to get around. They got other shit to do in Georgia, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, the opening of the store was contingent upon the state's Department of Revenue approving the liquor license that the city officials already said, yeah, we're cool with it.
Okay.
So when officials at the state got the paperwork, they rejected the license, and they specifically cited the store's proximity to those two churches.
Oh, it's so good.
And according to the local newspaper, the Upson Beacon, state officials said that they rejected it, even though there was advocacy on Steve Duke's behalf, the store owner's behalf, from, and I'm quoting here, basically the city manager, the mayor, the county commission chairman, a Georgia state representative, and a Georgia state senator. They all said, yeah, give the guy the liquor license. We're on his side here.
So somebody in the state house is a power trip and is like, oh, I can finally flex my muscles.
So the question, I quoted that pastor of saying, this ain't up to me. Actually, it kind of is, because according to a video that the pastor posted on Facebook about 2 weeks ago, he's like, everyone's mad at me. Oh, I'm going to make a video talking about this. He says in this video that Steve Duke himself and city officials asked him to sign a paper that effectively said, we don't care.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we don't worry about it. We don't care if this liquor store opens up nearby.
And he
because
wouldn't.
maybe that would have persuaded state officials to give him the approval he needed. Here's what he said in the video, and I'm going to paraphrase here. I couldn't do it, Hobbs said. I responded, I cannot sign the letter. We cannot condone alcohol. We don't condone the consumption of alcohol as the Bible tells us. And then he went on to say, drinking alcohol destroys homes, communities, and your work ethic. And then he talked about drunk driving, which I will say, legitimate concerns if we're talking about excessive or underage drinking. But having a glass of wine with dinner or drinking a beer while watching a game, who cares? That's legal.
Thank you
it's fine.
so much for explaining reasons that somebody might drink.
Yeah. At no
You're
point,
so out of your depth.
I so am. At no point in the video did this pastor acknowledge that other people have a right to make their own decisions, or that he was quite literally the obstacle standing in the way of that. And what's amazing is when the local news heard about this story, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to show up to interview you, guy owning the liquor store. And when they were like, oh, the news is coming? Well, guess what? There's people in town who are like, let the guy open up his store. There was a little mini protest of sorts in Steve Duke's defense.
In Steve Duke's, this is the liquor store guy?
Liquor store owner's defense, and some of those people were like, we are Christian. And they're holding up signs saying, do what's right. They're holding up signs saying bad form. One sign says, Dukes was here first. Here first.
I don't know. Bad form feels like something a protester would have used in England in 1950.
One resident said, I'm Christian.
Bad form, Thatcher. I know she was
I've been in church my whole life and I understand where they're coming from, but this is wrong. One person, who's a friend of Steve Duke, said, opening a business is not a sin. Steve has done absolutely everything right and by the book. Someone else wrote a letter to the local newspaper saying, speaking of heaven, why aren't these churches willing to assist by simply providing a letter stating that they have no opposition to him opening to the Department of Revenue? It's my understanding that's all it would take to get their license issued. It makes me suspicious of what their motivation is, or frankly, who may be behind it. Whatever the motivation, it certainly isn't very Christ-like. She goes on to write,
I'm so happy right now.
it'd be nice if someone from one of these many local churches they've supported over the years would have the courage to speak up on their behalf, especially a pastor. Do the right thing for goodness sake. You'll take their time and money, but won't speak up on behalf of their character. No one is asking you to speak up in support of alcohol, but as a Christian, aren't you called to speak out on behalf of what is right? Step up. Then there were billboards. The billboard said things like, give Dukes their license. They were here first. By the way, that opened right next to a Chick-fil-A, that billboard. Beautiful. So anyway, after the local news got all this footage, and I think this was a couple weeks ago, and then Steve Dukes keeps hearing, we're still working on like the investigation side of our local news report. So like, we're not airing this yet because we want to get the state's side of the story and all that. Apparently, when they asked the Department of Revenue for comment on why they haven't given this guy the liquor license, finally, the state says, yeah, okay, we'll reverse.
Hey!
Yeah. And so Duke told the local news, I really believe that you, Channel 11 Alive, coming down and doing the story, giving this the attention we think it needed was important.
Yay.
I don't think it's a coincidence that we got a decision the day before the 11 Alive story was supposed to run. So, like, the local news got the state to reverse the decision.
I mean, local journalism is important, you know?
And watching Steve Duke's Facebook page for Duke's Wine and Spirits.
Pop off.
He's been super gracious with everything.
Good for him.
But he just said he plans to open the store as soon as he receives the paperwork from the state, because they said they'll do it, but he needs the document. Yeah. He also thanked his supporters. I reached out to the pastor trying to get his comments. So, like, hey, your plan seems to have failed, buddy. What do you think now? I wrote that nicely.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
He didn't respond to me. I'm very sad about that. But
Is it because your name felt like a threat to him?
I am happy for this dude. I found it one of those like small town dumb stories, but also you put alcohol in church and a guy trying to open a liquor business in like rural Georgia.
I will say maybe a week or two ago we spoke about like something that's going on with a homeless shelter in a church. The community did not rally around the homeless population of that city the way they rallied around this liquor store that doesn't even exist
in rural
yet.
Georgia. We need the liquor store.
I will tell you what, I have lived in rural parts of this country and do not fuck with their Keystone Light.
There you go. All right, let's talk about the United Methodist Church because they had a big week. I know.
Sorry, I'm very coffee today.
It's all good. So here's what happened. The United Methodist Church is the second largest Protestant denomination in the United States. As of a few years ago, they had like 12 million people, I think, worldwide. But we talked about this last, I think, November because they had made a big move. Anyway, I'll give you some background here. On Wednesday of this week, the United Methodist Church got rid of its ban on gay clergy members. They used to say you can't be a gay priest, openly gay in a relationship, consummating the relationship, can't do it. And now they got rid of that ban. That's the big news.
That's huge.
They also voted to ban any punishments for clergy who perform same-sex ceremonies.
Wow.
That used to be a punishment. They're like, we're not punishing you
Welcome to the
anymore.
21st century, United Methodist Church.
There wasn't any debate. It wasn't even a close vote. In fact, the vote, it was actually, they weren't even voting just on that. They just said, you know what, this seems like a pretty done deal. We're just going to have like 100 things for all of you to vote on. And does anyone object to these 100 things? No comment from anybody. Cool. What's the vote to approve this package? 692 to 51.
Oh, I would love
of
to
the
talk
delegates to the UMC. So like overwhelming, more than 90% of them approved it. So great. That was what the headlines were saying. The UMC reverses its ban on gay priests. Like, huge deal. Except, I mean, come on. It's 2024, and they're just now saying, well, if you're a gay priest and you're married, I guess we're cool with it. It's too little, too late at this point.
Of course it is, but it's something compared to, I just want to gesture broadly at every other Christian in the world. It's better than it could be.
So here's the story. Here's some background to make this make more sense. Because for years now, the United Methodist Church, again, second largest Protestant denomination with 12 million members, they have been dealing with an internal schism because of this issue.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what we talked about months ago. But basically, the question is, should we embrace the bigotry or should we say no bigotry in our denomination? The big argument is whether individual UMC churches should be allowed to ordain gay members, specifically people in same-sex relationships and who have sex and who are not ashamed of it. Like, should we be allowed to make them priests?
Right.
And some churches said absolutely not. Some are like, who cares? It's fine.
Yeah.
And some ministers are like, well, we want to perform weddings, and that includes same-sex weddings. So, like, are we allowed to do that using our title? So while the majority of UMC churches in the United States said, why don't you let individual churches do whatever the hell they want?
Sure.
Many in other parts of the world, which are much more anti-gay, are like, no, just make a rule that says no one gets to do it because that's how Jesus works. And in 2019, when they had a general conference, which is where they decide policy, in 2019, there was a vote. Should we allow LGBTQ inclusion and stuff? And 53% of the delegates said no. They voted against it. So they instituted that ban. And that meant at that time in 2019, which is the last time they met to vote on things, they were like, well, I guess we're going to put this ban in effect. And all of a sudden you started seeing two things happen. First, you have more progressive. I use progressive with big quote hands. You see the progressive UMC churches saying, well, screw you. We're going to do it anyway. What are you going to do? Kick us out? We dare you.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well,
and then
you need us more than we need you, I bet.
Probably. And then you saw conservative churches saying, are you going to punish those people? Oh, you're not? Then we're leaving. So we're going to kick ourselves out of here.
Place, huh?
Yeah, and they're like, we see where you're going with this. Even if the ban is in effect now, it probably won't be in a little bit. So you know what? We'll make your job easier. We're leaving. And this is what's amazing. The UMC church said, fine, you have until 2023 to make a decision. Like the penalties for leaving us, because there are contracts when you're under the umbrella of any organization. Sure. They said, we're going to lower the penalties if you want to get out now. But you have until 2023 to make your decision. So you had pro-inclusion churches that had to make a decision. Are you going to stay in the church or leave? Accept the new rules, say goodbye to LGBTQ leaders in relationships and people who want to perform same-sex unions and young people who don't like bigotry? Or do you want to make a break and try to do things on your own, but now you won't have any support from a larger body?
Sure.
And at the same time, like I said, a bunch of churches were like, screw you, we're going to do our own thing anyway. And if they're defying the rules, what good is the UMC at that point?
Yeah.
So let me tell you about the penalties here. Leaving the UMC is not necessarily easy. It came with a massive financial hit because churches that want to leave the UMC, they are supposed to pay 2 years worth of church dues and fund their pension obligations to employees. And also, you get financial help.
They get pensions?
Some of them do.
God damn it.
And they get financial help from the mothership, and they would be saying no to that. And guess what? It didn't matter because a lot of these people are like, fine, well, penalize us. We don't care. We're still ditching. So last November when we talked about this, we talked about it because, for example, the UMC's North Georgia Conference, like the half of Georgia with 700 UMC churches, they were like, well, we have 261 churches that don't want to be with us anymore. And they signed off on, fine, you can all leave.
Wow.
And at the time, that was interpreted as conservative congregations saying, we see where you're going.
And
we
want
out. And those churches, now that they left, even after paying the penalty, you can't use United Methodist in your name, so the branding is gone. You can't use the logo.
So
you can't sue the conference. You still have to fulfill the financial obligation.
Agreement.
It is. It's like Burger King for Christians. And then it also said that the UMC said if you're leaving for reasons of conscience, you can, I said they were lower penalties at the time, you can keep your property in the building and you can keep any assets you have. You just got to pay us for a couple things. But after 2023, nope, we take your building too because it's ours. Okay. Yeah. By the way, when we talked about that in November, in that same year, 2023, you had another 193 churches in the South Georgia Conference walking out. You had 59 congregations in the UMC in Iowa walking out. That was months after another 83 left the same conference. This is what's happening in UMC.
And these are all the conservative ones bouncing?
More conservative than liberal.
Okay.
Like, not only conservative, but more conservative.
Sure.
And so, bottom line is, there used to be, in 2019, 30,000 UMC churches across the United States. How many of them have walked away? I just checked the spreadsheet. They keep a spreadsheet.
Yes.
I just checked. 7,658 of them, roughly a quarter,
Wow.
have chosen to leave the UMC since 2019 when the ban went into effect.
Okay.
So a quarter of the churches have left.
But they're still churches, right? It's not like they just defected and became Burger Kings.
That's correct. I mean, these are still churches, but they're no longer
So-
affiliated with the
So I guess
UMC.
what is the long term, or like why does it matter?
Which
I
part?
guess just why does it matter that all of these places are leaving the Methodist Church if they're still being Christians?
Right.
And it's like what
It's
can
the
you
difference between, like, we talk about the power of the Christian right, of non-denominational evangelical churches, which don't have a mothership. They are all kind of run independently. But you know the political power that
Right.
that group has. We all know the political power the Catholic Church has. Why do groups like, or Southern Baptists? Southern Baptist is a fairer analogy because that is a mothership.
Yeah.
So if you want affiliation with Southern Baptists, meaning, Jessica, you moved to a different city and you are Southern Baptist and you're like, oh, I'm moving in this new area. I want to find a church. Let me go on the website. Let me see which franchises are available in my new
I
city.
see.
Well, the Southern
So
Baptists
you're
say,
not gonna
here's a church you can go to. Those churches are saying, we don't need you. We're going to go off on
Got
our
you.
own.
Okay.
By the way, those conservative churches,
How have they been
did
doing?
form their own franchise.
Oh.
It's called the Global Methodist Church, because you can't use United Methodist anymore. I don't know how it's going.
GMC, I believe that's already a.
But to answer your question, what does it matter? Well, if one of the biggest Protestant denominations in the U.S. just lost 25%, imagine a company that just lost 25% of its stock value. It's like, all right, well, you're not as powerful as you used to be. You don't have the members you used to have, which means, politically speaking anyway, you don't have the sway you used to have.
So I guess.
And you know, like 90% of the members in these churches are ages 90 and above.
Sure. Okay, so is one of the problems that they're not able to sort of have one message across a bajillion people, or
Right,
is
and if
it
you don't have that branding and the franchise, like
Gotcha.
if you can't tell everyone how to think and how to work, again, you lose your power. What makes a
Sure,
strong
okay.
Christian brand? It's that you can walk into any church in the country and you know, oh, it's a United Methodist Church. Those are my people.
Yeah.
I can trust what they're going to do in this church.
Okay.
And if all these people are walking away, it's like, well, I don't know if this one's any good.
Yeah, and if like a political candidate talks to
Christians or
Christians,
Methodists. Yeah.
all of a sudden they're no longer okay.
It's not as powerful of a
I
brand,
understand.
of a block.
Because in my head it was like, yeah, they're not part of the Methodist Church, but they're just still Christians. It's just refiled. But I'm
obviously,
understanding.
as you know with politicians, they never talk to Christians.
Sure.
They talk to specific groups of them
Sure.
because they all want certain things.
and then tell them that they're the right kind of Christian.
Yes, of course. And so the thing is, I said about a quarter of those UMC churches left since 2019. Well, a good chunk of those are the conservative churches that were really against LGBTQ stuff.
Interesting.
Even though the rules were in their favor, they're like, yeah, but you're not enforcing
They see which
it.
way the wind is blowing.
We see which way the wind is blowing. So that's why when they had their next general conference this week, and they put the thing back on the voting block, back on the ballot, like, so how do we feel about gay people today? Well, it was a 90% to like 10% vote saying, yeah, we're cool with it.
Wait.
So why did that happen? Why did it go from
That's such a
53% of delegates
huge
saying,
shift.
let's ban them, to 90% saying, let's welcome them? It's because all the bad people left.
Oh.
All the delegates who were conservative have already spent the past few years wondering how the hell are we going to get out of this group.
Died.
Or died. So the ban on gay clergy, gone. The ban on performing same-sex weddings, gone. The ban on funding causes that, quote, promote acceptance of homosexuality, which means, like, can we support LGBTQ accepting ministries? That's gone. And again, this is what they voted on. That's nice. That's a good move in the right direction. But to the point of, like, what good does it do for them now? I would argue this doesn't do a damn thing for them because the progressive churches, quote unquote, progressive churches in the UMC were already defying the old rules. Conservatives already left because they weren't enforcing the rules. Now that the rules have changed, what's going to happen? Well, more conservative churches are going to leave because now there's no hope for them and their bigotry.
But they're betting that millennials and younger who tend to be much less homophobic than our parents were, maybe they can lure them back in by being like, hey, we're not your grandfather's
Are you talking
church
about
anymore.
the progressives or the conservatives?
I'm talking about the progressives of like,
Sure, they're hoping they can lure
draw in
new
young
members
people.
because, hey, look, we're not the bigots we
Right,
used to
exactly.
be. I wonder how powerful that is. Again, because, one, younger people are more and more inclined to walk away from organized religion.
But don't you think that's part and parcel because
Yes.
religion is so conservative and
Yes.
young people are not?
I'm trying to figure out who the target audience is who might say, well, I wasn't thinking about religion before, but now that the UMC says we're not the worst against gay people, I'm going to sign up to join a United Methodist
No,
Church.
I'm going to push back.
Who are these people?
I guarantee you that there are people who have stopped going to church for whatever reason, but still believe in some way or still miss. I mean, Lord, we've talked about it a billion times.
The
with
nuns are majority people who walked away from organized religion, but
Right.
still believe in God, may still believe in the Christian version of God.
Right, but and like when we used to do, or when they do like Sunday sermons and things like that, there's something about the ritual in the community that people like and miss, and God, it's something to do every week with your 4 and 8-year-old kids.
My
you know?
pushback to that is if they wanted that, if that was meaningful to them, well, guess what? There were those churches they could have gone to, including in the UMC, because like we said, the progressive churches were already defying the ban in the past. So they had that option. The fact that this denomination has now changed course officially,
Yeah.
again, I'm trying to figure out who's changing their mind today, because if the argument, and here's the point I want to make about that, if the argument is that why should you go to church? It's because it's where you get your morality from. It's where you get the ritual and all that. I find it hard to believe that you're going to look to the UMC for leadership in the area of morality when they came to a decision 10, 15, 20 years too late. Like, that is not an argument in their defense.
No, it's not. But I think that, I mean, if Cheeseburger King again, if Burger King was always using like horse meat or something like that, and then all of a sudden they said, like, you know, your local Burger King is not going to use horse meat. But then all of a sudden, all of McDonald's is like, hey, guys, just so we're clear, no more horse meat anywhere. There's a difference between, I know intellectually that this church isn't homophobic, but there is a difference between that and, hey, everybody, just so we're clear, just so
I feel
these...
like we've stretched this analogy to its
It's not a
breaking
good
point.
analogy. I understand that now. But listen, I'm doing my best. But do you understand what I mean? Like, there's a difference between, I know my church isn't homophobic versus...
And now I have the blessing of the denomination to say, we're okay. We're not
I grew up
violating.
Methodist. I miss it.
And I wonder how
this
many...
is as good a time as any.
I wonder how
have
many of
kids
those people
now.
there are. Because the exodus of churches, my theory here, I think they will still be losing churches in the foreseeable future. Maybe at a slower pace, because all the ones have already left if they were going to leave.
Yeah.
But I don't think the membership is going to be growing. Their membership has dropped from, I think we said 12 million worldwide.
Oh, I'm not-
It's now 5.4 million as of 2022. These are people in America. 5.4 million are consider themselves Methodists. I think if you look a year from now, my guess is that number is going to drop.
Well, I'm not
grow
saying their
because of
plan is
this.
going to work. I'm just saying that that's what they're thinking. In my
Some people may be
that would be
thinking
my
that.
guess is that they think that if they start to like cater themselves more to younger, more liberal people,
Yeah.
they will be a more attractive item. I'm sorry about the horse meat metaphor.
Sure.
I don't know where I was going.
I do think that's part of it, and I think they think this is what God wants them to do too. It's
I
not
forgot
just
about that
marketing,
part.
but and I think that is a rationale behind it. I just don't know how effective that's going to be because, again, if you're a young person, let's say you don't have a cultural tie to being Methodist, your family didn't raise you in that tradition or something.
oh yeah, I know how they're
Are
drawing
people-
in brand new people.
Are people suddenly going to flock to that church? Again, if you're looking for progressive, welcoming, accepting groups, this is not like the leading end.
I don't know.
of the
I'm just
battle
thinking
here.
of like somebody who has young children and just sort of needs a little more help and needs a little bit of community. The
But
world
I think we're
right now
talking about a very small percentage of people. Very small. So, yeah, some of them might, but I think more of them are going to walk out because of
Yes.
this. One person, a president of a anti-gay caucus within the UMC, he said he attended...
What a thing to dedicate your life to.
Man, the New York Times quoted this guy as saying, given the outcome, he will leave the the denomination within the next month. And he says many denominations that have moved in the direction of being pro-LGBTQ, they have seen their numbers dramatically decline. Quote, as the church becomes more and more liberal, and if a social agenda becomes its driving force, that's not going to grow the church. Because I guess nothing grows the church like bigotry.
Well, it's fun that it always comes down to our membership. We need to grow. We have to, like...
we need more bigots to grow our church.
It truly is one of those things that, like, I don't think this guy is worried about the word of Jesus not getting out. I think he's worried that his coffers aren't full anymore. Sure. And it's just so... I know it's cynical of me, but also it's a cynical world, and that's a terrible dude.
I don't know why... Going back to your point about young people, why would you want to join a church that spent the past several years defending an organization that didn't officially believe in the humanity of gay people?
Well,
even if it individually was like, yeah, but we're cool.
I'm sorry to be the person
Granted,
to tell
I'm a
you
Democrat,
this, Hammond,
so.
but a lot of people don't give a shit about gay rights.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are pretty selfish and don't think that much about their church's bad views. I say this as somebody who knows a ton of Catholics.
Yes, that is very true. And
Thank you.
To play devil's advocate to myself here, this is what someone on Reddit
This
said.
is an atheist world record.
I know.
Devil's advocate against myself.
Yeah, this is what one Redditor pointed out. Like, the famous quotation is, the best time to plant a tree is 50 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yeah.
So if the UMC can change its ways...
I love that expression.
If the UMC is changing its ways, is it long overdue? Yes. Is it the right thing to do? Sure. And like, yeah, they're coming to the right path. It's long after everyone else did. But like, if a denomination of this size says gay clergy are welcome, maybe there's hope for other bigots. Maybe Southern Baptists and Catholics can come to their senses too. Yeah. Eventually. They won't, but we could...
No, they won't. But I mean... honestly, I think we have this argument twice a year of like, are baby steps still steps?
Yeah.
And you tend to be like, too little, too late. And I'm like, anything that's progressive.
I mean, movement in the right direction is a good thing, even when you're already on the wrong end of the spectrum.
But Hammond reserves the right to be big mad about it.
Oh, yeah. And I should say, like, there are a lot of LGBTQ members of the United Methodist Church who have fought for this for many, many years. They finally got what they were looking for, and like, good for them. I appreciate that they were fighting for this. And like, when progressive, big quote fingers, when progressive activists like that win a battle, like, good, we should acknowledge that, even if it feels like a Republican politician doing the bare minimum. It's like, good for you, but also, come on.
Yeah.
And I kind of also appreciate that this whole controversy of whether gay people are humans, I mean, I like the fact that it broke apart the UMC. Like,
oh yeah, this is I bet you the first of many.
Yeah, like,
do you think?
Not that this controversy killed off UMC churches, but it did pressure many individual churches to forge their own path forward, which means they've lost the power of their numbers, which is a good thing overall. Like, I am glad they have less power than they used to have, and I don't think they're going to be growing anytime soon. So it's like, yeah, they staved off impending doom. It'll come eventually for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're kicking the ball down the field, to be sure. But like, I don't know, it's they're going in the right direction. It's hard, even cynical me, to be too cynical.
They did the bare minimum.
Listen, the bare minimum is not always achieved. This is why we're always impressed when men put dishes away. The bare minimum is not something that we always see accomplished. I just want to be clear, my husband does all the dishes in my house because I load the dishwasher wrong.
I'm going to tell you a story about this principal in Alabama.
Oh, God.
And you're going to be devastated. Okay.
Devastated?
So, yes.
Why are you so happy to say that?
I'm not happy. This one made me mad. There's a principal named Lauren Dressback. She's the principal of Vestavia Hills Elementary, Cahaba Heights. That's the official name of the school. It's a public school in Alabama. She's the principal. She's been with the district. I think she graduated from the district, lives in the community, worked as a history teacher at the high school.
Cool.
For like 20-some years, became the elementary school's principal in 2022, and she just, like months ago, had her contract extended through 2026. So, like, lifelong district employee, member, public servant, good for her. As far as I could tell, everyone seems to adore her. Okay, great. Since February, she hasn't been seen in the district. And she put out an email like back in February saying, I'm going to be on leave, so talk to this person if you need anything. And then in mid-March, like a month later, she sent another email. This is March 13th. Good afternoon, elementary school parents. I have been out of the building and will be for a little while longer. If you need any help, contact the assistant principal. She'll be happy to assist you. That's the last we heard of her. And so the question is, she's not kidnapped or anything.
Okay,
Like,
I was going to say, I watch a lot of true crime. I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Somebody check basements.
The question is like, okay, why is she gone? Why is she on leave? Because if it was like a medical thing or something, she would have said, like, I have some personal things going on. I'm going to be gone. I don't want to tell you details, but whatever. Like some version of that. Like, okay, be on medical leave or something. Maybe it's a death in the family. I get that. Tell us something like I have to take some time off. But no one's saying anything about why she's gone. And it doesn't seem like she chose to be out of commission.
Okay.
So this week on Monday, there was a school board meeting and people are like, we think we know why she's gone. We want the school board to tell us why she's gone. Where the hell is she?
Is she a lesbian?
Hang on. There was a dude who spoke during the public comments section of the school board meeting. And he opened up his public comments like, hey, school board, if I ask questions, are you obligated to answer them? To which a board vice president says, we generally do not respond to public comments. Another person, a graduate of the local high school, said the board's decision to be silent about Lauren Dressback was a disservice to the community. He said this action of putting Lauren Dressback on administrative leave, that was the official term, undermines this mission of the school board. And to which the superintendent said, on the advice of my counsel and the board, we will not comment on matters related to personnel. So like, the school board said, you're on leave. She did not choose to be on leave. The school board placed her on leave. There's by the way, no public record of the board placing her on leave. You would think that'd be in the minutes somewhere. It's not. And her employment contract, which is public because she's a public servant, it says we can terminate this contract at any time for reasons including, and there was a long list, but it includes like insubordination, failure to perform duties in a satisfactory way, and immorality. There was an immorality clause in the contract, and it's like, well, as far as we know, she hasn't been insubordinate. She's doing a great job. It's probably the immorality thing, but you're not telling us what she did.
And this is a public school?
Yep. And so basically, what the hell happened here? And by the way, if she did something hypothetically with a child, like if it was something like that immorality, but like criminal, then we would have heard about that too.
Yeah, the police would be involved.
Police would be involved. If student safety were at risk, you would think the school board would say something about that, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. So then this week, and the reason people showed up at that school board meeting is because there are a couple people who went on social media recently and said, guess what? Lauren Dressback gave us permission to make these videos and tell the community what's going on. So we're going to tell you what's going on. And by the way, local news people, they could not confirm she gave them permission to do this. So we're working off of their word here. But like, all right. But basically, both videos I watched, one on YouTube, one on TikTok, they both told the same story. And the story goes like this. As of a year ago, she was married to some guy, whatever, cool. Last year, she apparently came out as a lesbian, and she and her husband separated, but, quote, he remains very supportive, according to one of these speakers on social media. In February of this month, she's now apparently dating a woman, and she apparently, at work, shared a picture with a secretary friend of hers in the office, like, oh, look, this is my new girlfriend, and it's a picture of the girlfriend kissing her on the cheek or something. And apparently, according to one of those people, another staffer, maybe a custodian, saw them looking at the picture. And not long after, she was placed on leave. That's the whole extent of the story. And one of the dudes on YouTube said...
she showed it to a staff member, right?
Not a friend of hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a student.
No. Which who cares? But also people have pictures on their... Teachers have pictures on their desks of, here's me and my family. Right. Like, who cares? But also, she didn't do that. She shared it with someone in the office, like a friend of hers. Now, one of those YouTubers says district administrators want to fire her, but they have no good legal reason to do so. So for now, she's on leave until they can find something to pin on her. Maybe she filled out a timesheet incorrectly. Who knows? He also said she has a lawyer. Okay, there was another TikTok video about this whole situation. It told basically the same story.
School.
Yeah. Same story. This other woman on TikTok says... But she adds a couple more things. She said Lauren Dressback was escorted out of the school when her superiors learned about her new girlfriend. Someone may have filmed her showing that picture to the colleague, like they caught it on camera, as if something bad happened. And the situation...
Why would you be filming your principal?
Showing a picture of her girlfriend who was... I don't know. The situation is so bad, this TikToker said, that Dressback literally had to ask permission to step on district property so she could watch her high school son's track meet.
Jesus Christ.
So the bottom line is she was a Teacher of the Year recipient when she was married to a man, but now she's placed on leave because she's dating a woman. And like Alabama has one of those don't say gay bills with another more restrictive one currently working its way through the legislature. And if district officials think that's going to protect what they're doing here, I don't know. They may want to think twice because there's no indication that Dressback discussed or shared her orientation with any children. Not that it should matter because straight people do it all the time. But the point is she didn't do that. And also, this is from the TikToker Lauren Pill. She said Lauren Dressback has been contacted by a federal investigator with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Which means like a Fed said, tell us your story. We're curious about this case. We may get involved. Wow. So that could be a bigger problem for the district. So here's where we're at now. She's not back in school yet. There's no public statement from the district about where she is or what's going on. But now these rumors are circulating and people are getting mad to the point where they're showing up to school board meetings demanding to know answers and the board won't answer them.
Wow.
But it sure seems like these people would rather see a shitty straight principal than a stellar lesbian one.
Holy shit. That is...
the rabbit hole I went down for that story.
Oh my Christ.
I stalked so many Facebook profiles for that one.
How? Oh my God. And so we have no idea... We don't have names on the school board. We don't know who
we have names, but we don't know who caused this, what the discussion was to place her on leave.
And why did the person say maybe a custodian?
Like that might be, maybe they heard that from Dressback herself. I don't know. But again, the details are sketchy here, and we're working off of two things. One video on YouTube, one video on TikTok from people who claim they have spoken to her or through an intermediary on her behalf.
Yeah.
Which again, I reached out to the person who made the TikTok video as well. She did not get back to me. Like, it's really hard to get what's the real story here because, again, if you're the principal, you're like, look, there's an investigation. My lawyer's dealing with it. They're not going to talk. So it's kind of hard to figure out what the story is. Anyway.
Interesting.
Okay. Did you know today, May 2nd, is the National Day of Prayer? It is.
How are you practicing today?
I didn't do jack shit, which is how I always celebrate days of prayer.
So.
I know. This is one of those days Republicans celebrate because they want to impose conservative Christianity upon the country. Democrats often go along with it because they're dumb.
Yep.
And a lot of mayors honor it because it feels like the right thing to do.
Okay.
And so I bring that up because this is what happened in London, Kentucky, which is about, I think, an hour south of Lexington or so.
The thing about Kentucky is all of their cities are another place, and the best one is Versailles. It's Versailles. That might be Indiana, not Kentucky. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so...
Love you, Kentucky.
In London, Kentucky, the mayor's name is Randall Weddle, and today morning, he sponsored the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. And they used the city's...
There's a lot of rhyming things that are happening to me.
There were a lot of posts about this on Facebook, like, come join us for the prayer breakfast. It says it's an opportunity for our community to come together over breakfast and join in prayer for our city and its leaders.
Do you think? It always is a breakfast.
I mean, lunch gets in the way of whatever you got to do. It was at 7 a.m. It's like, it's an early breakfast.
Christ, that's too early for anything.
Maybe you got to go to work. I don't know. Now, here's the thing. As far as big deals go, no, this is not a big deal. But it's still wrong. Like, the city should not be promoting prayer or religion, or specifically Christianity, because this is Christianity.
Right.
And the thing is, the Freedom from Religion Foundation... Oh, by the way, it is weird that the city said this would allow the entire community to unite in prayer, which is what their Facebook post said. Because, one, there's no way the entire community is religious. Yeah. And two, religion is not a way to unite anybody. It never has been. So the Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to the mayor, basically saying, drop your support for this divisive evangelistic vision for America and cease holding a National Day of Prayer event. They said, quote, by participating in a prayer breakfast, you lend your title, mayor, to a religious message and send an official message that excludes non-Christians, including the nearly 30% of the American population who are non-religious. Okay, fine. It's not a lawsuit. It's not even a threat of a lawsuit. Okay. It's a reminder that, like, whatever you think you're doing, you're not. It's not helping. And we're trying to warn you that, you know, it could be a problem. Maybe it won't be, but it could be. And we're trying to...
It's not a threat.
Even if it's not a lawsuit,
heads up.
even if it's not a lawsuit, it's like, you're not helping. You're actually doing something really bad here. This guy, this mayor, could not handle that letter. He posted a video. He posted a video on the city's official Facebook page.
Uh-oh, somebody's spiraling.
Oh, man. It was like 7 minutes long.
Oh, no.
And it's all insane.
Was it edited?
No, it wasn't. No jump cuts anywhere in it.
7 minutes of stream of consciousness.
So I'm not going to play all 7 minutes for you here because it will take forever. But I'm going to read you some of the stuff he said because it was insane. One of the things he said is, before I become mayor, small groups has always attacked me. They're always constantly trying to place their political desires or gain over what's good for our community. ... As Americans, we have the right to assemble and we have the right to pray over our community. I'll just pause there for a second. Because, one, they're not even attacking you. They're warning you. They're telling you you're making a mistake. If you're a good mayor, you would say, oh, I didn't realize that was a mistake. I should stop making the mistake. Thank you for pointing out my error.
I mean, isn't that such a microcosm of everything that's wrong everywhere? Of like, hey, guy, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this isn't great. And instead of like being...
Why are you trying to cancel me?
Yeah, like... Guys, it's okay to make... Did somebody learn at some point that it's not okay to make mistakes or okay to say, I'm sorry, or okay to admit wrongdoing? Like, when did that happen? Because all I do is apologize and tell people about my mistakes. Am I not supposed to be doing that?
And also, he says, we have the right to assemble and pray. Yeah, no one's stopping you.
Of course you do, dog.
Go to your church and set up the prayer breakfast there. That's fine. The city shouldn't be promoting it, and you shouldn't be promoting it using your office where he was in when he filmed this thing and putting it on your personal mayor's Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
This is all
then
bad.
He goes on to say, he's trying to defending the breakfast. We all know that without faith, our community would be lost. Like, nope, you're making the same mistake. Now you're doubling down.
You're doubling down on your bad opinion, sir.
He goes on to say, in this letter, it demands that we don't have this prayer meeting. It demands we don't assemble ourselves together in our faith. It demands that my office stop this. ... I'm a mayor for all the people that live in London. Like,
Except for the people who aren't Christian.
right. Like,
Also, I forgot that the city was London in Kentucky and not England.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah?
like, if you're the mayor for all people, then be the mayor for all people. Stop saying you only count if you belong to our faith. The word our, the use
So
of
bad.
our and we kind of gives away the game there.
It really does, doesn't it? I mean, people loving us versus them.
Yeah, and then he says, we will not cave to the demands of individuals who do not live here or reside here. It's like, FFRF sent this letter on behalf of someone who lives in your town. They said that in the letter. The fact that the postmark came from Wisconsin does not matter,
truly.
I assure you. And then he said...
people do get hung up on something being not from, like, next door to them, huh?
Meanwhile, all the religious right groups from Texas are like, we can do whatever we want everywhere in the country. It's fine. Then the mayor said, they think they're winning by sending this letter to demand us to stop
He
or
said
they
demand
will sue.
a lot of times, and I bet demand does not live in that document.
It is not. Then he says, let's show that one small group or one radical idea will not stop us.
Radical idea, like the most common religion
First Amendment,
in
basically.
the country.
Because here,
So radical.
we
So brave.
understand the importance of faith. And we understand the importance of prayer. We carrying a lot of weight there. And then he said, this is a time that we stop that little small group from controlling what the masses does.
What?
I'm quoting directly.
That wasn't that.
grammatically correct? Yeah, no.
Ooh,
Also,
they are
the whole
smack in the
point
middle of nowhere.
Like, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is, the majority doesn't get to be tyrannical over the minority. That's kind of how the thing works.
I think I drove through London, Kentucky on my way to
Maybe you could stop by and send this guy
Knoxville.
another letter.
maybe I'll have to.
I don't know. But again, the letter doesn't say you can't have a day of prayer. It's not about that. FFRF did not say it's going to sue. It did warn the city to do the right thing now so it doesn't lead to a lawsuit.
Wow.
There's a picture of this
tremendous
guy.
overreaction.
Come over here and look at the picture of this mayor angrily holding up FFRF's letter as he yells at the camera. He is like a Blazing Saddles character, just like, look at what these people sent me. By the way, he never in that video mentioned how many non-Christian groups are participating in the event.
How many?
I don't know.
Oh.
There's no indication. I'm guessing there are not a lot of Muslims represented.
I doubt there's a huge Jewish population.
The London Jews, yes. I'm sure there are many. But again, if his church wanted to host the event, we would not be talking about it.
What if there's a huge Sikh temple in London and we just didn't know? But wouldn't that be a fun twist on this story?
That would be fantastic. By the way, on a side note, just since
Do
we're
Sikhs
talking
have
about
temples?
Sikhs do have temples.
Good job, Jessica.
On a side note, Representatives Jamie Raskin and Jared Huffman in Congress, they just introduced their resolution establishing May 4th, Saturday, as the National Day of Reason. That one, by the way...
Is it because it's May the 4th?
No, it's always just been, I think, 2 days after...
The prayer breakfast?
The prayer breakfast.
Oh, that's
no
pretty
Star
fun.
Wars jokes. But yeah, like they've been introducing this resolution forever. It's symbolic. It passes. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not something they take votes on.
Right.
But it's one of those things. If you look at the text for the National Day of Reason, it is inclusive. It doesn't exclude anybody.
Yeah.
It just says, we could celebrate reason, and it's a nice counterpoint, even if it doesn't carry that
And
much
I'm sure
weight.
it's going to get a lot of traction, like all
I'm
things
sure-
atheists do.
I'm sure it will.
We make such a splash.
Better than letting the prayer breakfast speak for everybody, which is the problem.
I'm not criticizing that we do shit like this, but it is, Lord, it's a thankless job.
We have so little. Let us have this.
so little.
All right. I'm going to talk about this Pentecostal preacher. His name is Loren Livingston, Loran. Loren Livingston. He's a Pentecostal preacher.
That's a really good name.
Who got a lot of praise this week. Praise because there was a clip of him going viral because it looked like he's trashing the Trump Bible.
Uh-oh.
And it's like, cool, this guy is like going after Donald Trump and that Bible he's selling with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in it. And it made me mad because this guy doesn't deserve praise. But before I get there, let me play a couple clips of this thing.
Only Hammett can steal victory out of the jaws of defeat like this.
I got mad
I said it
'cause
wrong. God damn it, Jessica.
I saw a bunch of liberal Twitter
Defeat out of the jaws of
accounts
victory.
sharing this, like, look at this Christian. And people saying, like, yeah, that's the sort of Christian I can get on board with.
Here are two things that make Hammett really angry. One, anybody praising anybody of religion. Two,
Correct.
children having opinions.
Or, like, college degrees.
Specifically.
They don't deserve them.
No.
Okay, so like a clip on TikTok of this guy speaking had over 1 million views, and that was like days ago. And one of the comments said, like, I don't know who he is, but the American church better hear, man. I saw prominent liberals saying things like, this evangelical is over Trump. And other people said, this is a must-watch segment of this guy torching Trump. Except he's not doing any of these things. Okay, just to recap before I play you the clips. What is the Trump Bible? It's the thing Trump endorsed. It costs $59.99 plus shipping. It includes the KJV translation of the Bible, along with the texts of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance, and singer Lee Greenwood's I'm Proud to Be an American.
To be an American.
So basically, it's a way to sell megacultists a book they will never read because it sounds like something they should have.
Well, everybody has a coffee
Even
table
though all
book.
this stuff is free online. Okay. So he's not mad, though, because of any of this stuff. He's mad, and I can say this before I play the clip. He's mad because the book mixes religion with politics, and a lot of preachers are like, I don't like those two worlds intermingling. Okay. So here's clip 1, because this guy went on for a while. Again, Loren Livingston mad about this book.
You say, wow, There's a Bible out now that includes the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Isn't that wonderful? No.
No.
No, it's disgusting. It's blasphemous. It's a ploy.
I love this
Are
guy.
you kidding me?
Stop it.
Some of you are so encouraged by that. Let me tell you something. The gospel is not an American gospel. It is the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ.
So that's part one right there, okay?
I could listen to this man talk for years. His inflections are bananas, and I'm here for it.
Like, here's the
I
thing.
just like when people take a sentence and they're like, it's jazz for me.
Like, first of all, this guy is not anti-Trump in the least. He's not mad at Trump. He's mostly mad that people are attracted to this Bible when the Bible alone should be enough for them. But like, what? Are some people buying this because it now has Trump's name affixed to it?
Yes.
That it has this Christian nationalist aura hanging over it? Like, if that's the reason you're picking up the Bible, that's what he's mad about. And I
Right.
do understand that from his perspective. That's what's disgusting. That's what's blasphemous to him. Not the fact that Trump is selling the Bible, which is what I wish he would be mad about. He's mad that some Christians are saying, look at this Bible I just bought. He's like, what? You didn't buy this, or you wouldn't have picked up the Bible if Trump hadn't done this? You're the problem. He's mad at Christians who are attracted to the gospel because only now Trump is endorsing this particular book.
Yeah,
so
dog.
he is not against Trump. So that's part one. Here's
Well, he
another
hasn't
thing.
mentioned Trump yet. Is he going to name
He
check
has
Trump?
not name-checked Trump. Thank you for mentioning that.
You're welcome. I do interrupt with good things sometimes.
He doesn't mention Trump anywhere. Here's another part.
All right.
But Pastor, I bought the Bible. Really? You're telling me that you're encouraged because someone took a government U.S. Constitution, a document that says we are of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people. The people.
He hates these
the
things.
people.
The people.
And you have put it right beside the Word of God,
the people.
which is eternal, unchanging, which says, of Him, by Him, through Him, to Him, from Him are all things. And you're going to put those together and be happy about it? God forbid. Now, you can get mad if you want to, but I'm going to tell you something. If you glory in that kind of thing, you don't have a prayer life.
Is glory a verb?
Yes.
If you glory in that kind of
Is
mess,
it? I've never heard of it.
political mess, you do not know what the Word of God says.
So, just to recap, this guy is saying, who cares what the U.S. political documents say? Because that's all about what people are going to do. We, in this building, should only be caring about what God wants us to do. So again, that just reiterates the point. He has no problem with Trump. He has no problem with MAGA anything, even though that is how people saw that clip and they're like, this guy's trashing Trump and the Trump. No, he doesn't give a shit about any of that.
No.
He's mad at Christians for not caring about the Bible enough. And if you need more advice that this guy is not your friend, I'm going to play you one more clip. And this is what he said about 10 seconds prior to everything you just heard, because I just want to make it clear, this guy does not like you. He is not your friend. He is not anti-Trump. He probably votes for Trump. Okay? Here's what he said right before these clips.
So if you don't read the Bible and if you don't have a prayer life, you will be confused about everything. People who don't read the Bible and don't pray, who call themselves Christians, get confused about the whole LGBTQ thing. Because instead of looking at what the Word says, they look at how people feel and how they feel and what's doing to people. People who don't read the Bible and pray and call themselves Christians will be confused about abortion. Is it a woman's right? On and on. It's murder. It's the premeditated termination of innocent human life. That's called murder. People that don't read and pray will get politics mixed up with church.
Dramatic
Is he
pause.
falling
They start-
asleep?
Mixing and meshing together. That's why some of you bring politics into the church. You think that politics is spiritual stuff.
So again,
Ironically, he uses a lot of pregnant pauses.
yeah.
Yes. Haven't kind of high-fived me.
It was a very sad high five. He carries those
I've never
pauses
bullied
to
heavy.
term.
Haven't harder than just now when I held up my hand for a high five.
So he's saying, if you read the Bible carefully, you would be against LGBTQ rights and civil rights like that.
Dying.
If you read the Bible, you would be against abortion rights. And if you read the Bible, you would not be mixing politics and religion. That's what he's mad about, because if you can be swayed by politics to read the Bible, you might follow what politicians say instead of what God says. He's mad because some Christians might buy a Trump-endorsed Bible. He's not just mad because they're buying the Bible because it's Trump-endorsed. He's mad because you should be buying the Bible on its own terms, and you're putting Trump on a pedestal instead of God. I'm just saying. He doesn't deserve praise for what he said because there's nothing courageous about what he said. He's definitely not some liberal ally.
No, he's a
here.
bad guy for sure. But I mean, I just listened to, I think it was the last episode of Warren Throckmorton's Telling Jefferson Lies.
Yeah.
And so that is sort of really, really speaking to me because they talk obviously about this Bible and talk a ton about how the interwovenness between the Constitution and the Bible is getting so sloppy and yada, yada, yada. So I think it is interesting to hear somebody cite the separation of church and state in favor of religion. We don't see that much. So good for him there. But
I think that clip of him saying that it's blasphemy, it's a ploy, people wrongly said, oh, he's talking about the Trump Bible. No, he's not.
I mean, he was talking about the Trump Bible.
No, he's talking about the Christians who are buying this
Trump Bibles
because it has politics infused in it. And he's saying, don't buy the Bible because it has politics. He's not mad at Trump. He doesn't care about Trump. It's not about Trump. That's it. That's my complaint.
I don't think I agree with you. I think
About what?
About the fact that I think that there is certainly subtle, underhanded criticism against Trump.
Is he going to vote for Trump?
I mean, that's not the point.
Yes, it is.
No, the point is he is saying these things of, hey, we should be careful. We should not marry these two things. And whether or not you you like what he believes, and I don't, it is good to see somebody say, hey, don't get your religion in my politics. Hey, don't get your politics in my religion. I think that's
If he said we have no business influencing the abortion debate, regardless of what we think, I would agree with you. He's not. He's fine with his religion influencing politics.
Of course he is, but he doesn't want it to be encroached the other way, and that's
We're on the same side here.
No, we're not. We're never on the same side, Hammond, because you've never ever said, yeah, Jess, you're right. Ever in your entire fucking life. You've just been like, I guess. That's talking to you.
I got one last one for you.
Yeah.
Along the same lines, because I figured you would enjoy this topic. So, we've talked before about Doug Wilson. He is the cult-ish preacher in Moscow, Idaho.
I'm sorry,
with his
nobody is
Christ
following
Church.
a cult of somebody named Doug Wilson.
Yes, the cult of Doug. This is the church, the ministry in Idaho, that in July of 2020, when everyone was inside their homes, he's like, you know what we're going to do in Christ Church? We're going to hold a giant indoor service. No one can wear masks. Just come on down.
And now
No
they're all dead
social
and they're having a
distancing.
liquidation sale for the church because there's no survivors.
No one knows. And then they staged a protest outside City Hall that year in opposition to local COVID restrictions. In November of 2020, October of 2020, a church staffer tweeted, "Brothers, a friendly reminder for elections, make sure your wife votes exactly as you do."
Okay.
Because you control her, don't you forget. And there was a Vice article about the church's inner workings that found that, quote, women are told they must defer to church leaders and cannot say no to their husbands. Men are taught to strictly control their homes, and those who speak out can be isolated and harassed.
What sect is it? It's just a made up.
It is
Doug
Doug.
sect.
Doug sect.
Doug sect.
This church at that time had about 900 members in Moscow, Idaho, which is a town of about 25,000 people. So they don't have the numbers to like take over the town.
Sure.
But it's very
They're trying to
clear
pull
from
a
the
Wild Wild
Reddit.
Country here?
They're very much trying to do that. But he's one of the leading advocates, Doug, of Christian nationalism. And last week, he did an interview with Tucker Carlson. And in the tweet that Tucker Carlson sent out promoting the video of all this, he described Wilson as the Christian nationalist they warned you about. And after that interview went out, I don't think Doug Wilson liked being called a Christian nationalist.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's
doesn't
really
like the
coming
term.
around to embrace it.
He loves the idea behind it.
Okay.
He doesn't like the term because, for a bunch of reasons, but basically he put out a video where he answers his followers' questions. And he basically said he's opposed to the idea of forcing his religion on others, as if non-Christians were like not entitled to political equality. Of course they have rights. I don't want to impose my will upon them. He's for religious freedom. Non-Christians should be allowed to exist and thrive in America. But then he said like, well, we'd be way better off than what we're dealing with now.
Of course.
If my views were imposed on everybody. But don't call that Christian nationalism. I don't want a theocracy. I just want Christianity infused in everything that Americans do. Okay. So I'm going to play for you this one Q&A portion where someone asked him, like, how do you reconcile all this stuff? And, like, how could we declare it a Christian nation and not make it a theocracy? You know what I mean? How could we make this a Christian nation? Here's what he said, and then we'll talk about the dumb things that he said.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we are not to have an established church at the federal level or established churches at the state level, in what way could America ever be considered a Christian nation?
How could
this
we
could
be a
done
Christian
in various
nation?
ways. The president could issue a proclamation that acknowledged that Jesus rose from the dead,
Yep.
and Congress could authorize the funds to have that proclamation printed and bound, read in all the schools, and posted in all the federal courthouses. That could be fun. The Supreme Court could take up
Sounds
a new religious
real
liberty
fun.
case, ideally one with Jack Phillips in it, and in
Jack
their
Phillips.
decision, they could reaffirm and reboot the decision of the Supreme Court in the 1892 Holy Trinity versus the United States case, in which the court determined that the United States was, in fact, a Christian nation and had been such from the beginning. Or the Apostles' Creed could be incorporated into the Constitution. None of these actions would establish a particular Christian denomination as being the mascot of the government.
You have
Say
ruined
mascot?
that clip for everybody.
No,
okay.
it was funny.
So, here's what he was
Okay.
saying. Like, how can we make sense of all this? How can we do all this stuff? Basically, how can America be considered a Christian nation if we can't have an established church at every level?
What was
right?
the Supreme Court thing he cited?
So he said there are three ways we could basically call ourselves a Christian nation that he says these would be legal and you don't need to have a national church or a state church.
Well, and I really like that
Option
he
one-
thinks that Congress is really going to band together on this one
yeah.
thing when they've never agreed on anything in 300
Sure.
years.
So option one, he said, just have the president issue a proclamation saying Jesus rose from the dead.
What
Just
like that's
do it.
I don't know what like that he rose from the dead. Not that he's the Son of God. Not
No,
that he's
Jesus
the
rose
one
from the
true
dead.
way.
And
It's
then-
specifically that he rose from the dead.
It's a scientific fact. And
Oh.
then Congress could just say, well, it's a proclamation, so we can print it and bind it and have it read in every public school and posted in the federal courthouses. Basically, he wants to treat Jesus rose from the dead like in God we trust. Because, like, we make that our motto.
is that
now
what he
you can get
means?
it everywhere. So just have the president say, well, look, here's the way it is. Jesus rose from the dead. And now it's a presidential thing. It's not a church thing. See, everybody? Christian nation.
I'm confused because he said something about Congress has something printed and bound.
Congress could say, well, it's a proclamation, so legally we can have it printed and bound up in little books and we can spread that out
And
so
then
every
it's a tiny
American
book
knows.
that just says Jesus rose from the dead that has to be posted in courthouses.
Why
I don't
not?
understand
You
what
can
he's
legally do it.
I feel like I'm just imagining, like, Martin Luther
we've
nailing
seen-
the theses, but with a teeny tiny Bible.
Right. We've seen them do it within God We Trust. Like, we have to get it on every school building or in every classroom. And they can be donated, it's fine. Or Congress can give us money to put up a standard version, like a road sign inside our building that says this. That's what he thinks could happen, and that's not imposing his will anywhere.
I have a hot take.
Yes, that was option 1. There's 2 more.
Sometimes I feel like this is so stupid, but like, let them spend all of their political capital on In God We Trust or this dumb shit that accomplishes literally nothing.
By the way, this is way more anti-Semitic than all the stuff that is being said right now. This, let's just declare Jesus rose from the dead.
Oh, because that would specifically
I don't think the Jews sign
discount
on to that.
Jews and Muslims.
And everyone else who's not a Christian, and even a bunch of Christians who are like, what the hell are you doing? Option 2, Doug Wilson says, to legally make this a Christian nation, is have the Supreme Court take up a religious liberty case. Jack Phillips is one of those bakers who's like, what, you're a trans customer? I don't want to sell my cakes to you. He said, why don't you just have the Supreme Court take up one of those cases, and in their case, they just say, well, we decide XYZ because this is a Christian nation and has been since the very beginning.
I love that he keeps saying, we just have to. We just have to. As if like...
But it's not a theocracy.
But like also, we just have to, talk to the president of the United States and have him do this and get all... Who's we? Who is like your political powerhouse who's accomplishing these deeply pointless goals?
Well, if you voted for the people he tells you to vote for, ladies. And then option 3 is to get the Apostles' Creed incorporated into the Constitution. Let me read you the beginning of the Apostles' Creed.
Yeah.
I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, yada, yada, yada.
Hallowed be thy
That's the
name.
Apostles' Creed. It's not even in God we trust. It's, here's the...
long.
It's so much longer. It goes into depth about specifically what these Christians believe. He's like, just put that in the Constitution. With what? 3/4 of the states
does that
ratifying it? What do you
mean?
want? Do you want an amendment to the Constitution that says that? Do you want it worked into the 14th Amendment? I don't know what he wants. I don't know what that means. How? But
That's
again,
bananas.
his whole theory is if you do all this, it's totally legal, and it would be a way to show that we're a Christian nation, even though we're not saying it's a Christian nation, and it wouldn't be
And
a
then what?
theocracy. And then we win.
Oh.
That's it. The bottom line is this is Christian nationalist thinking, but he really is opposed to the idea that they are Christian nationalists because he doesn't like that term. It makes him sound like a bad dude.
Oh my God.
And then he said, what's Christian nationalism? Well, like, somebody asked him, would you run away from the Christian nationalist label or the terminology? He said, well, sure, if advocates of it like blew up the Washington Monument or did anything anti-Semitic, I would run away from the
now
label.
he's worried about the
Now
Jews.
he's worried about it. But if we just post Jesus rose from the dead,
Yeah, that
that's
offends
fine.
nobody.
Yeah. He's not a Christian nationalist. He's just a religious leader that wants to make good decisions for everybody.
And their wives.
Yeah. And like Christian nationalism is bad enough on its own, but like Christians ought to reject it because guys like this are the ones pushing for it. I don't have
Truly.
anything more. That's it.
Wow, what a douchebag. You know, I was listening to that Warren Throckmorton thing, and they have a quote and he talks about something I've brought up a lot of like, okay, fine, it's a Christian nation. You guys tell me which Christianity that we're going to stick with. And there was this like...
And the version promoted by this dude
Right,
is
exactly.
a very scary branding.
Well, they had this like radio interview between two dudes who are Baptists, and they're saying like, yeah, people are talking about like, well, Christians get in power. Are they going to like persecute people? Well, you know, Baptists, there's a lot of us, so if somebody's getting persecuted, it's not going to be us. We're probably doing the persecuting. And it's just like, oh, okay, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're fine with it as long as it's not them.
You guys, Mikey came home with Portillo's, and I didn't see his text in time, so I'm not getting Portillo's, and this is the worst thing that's happened to me in years.
That is the whitest thing you've said all podcast. And with that, where can we go? You can support this show at patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast. You can join the Discord. You can go to the Facebook page, leave a review on the iTunes. We have a bonus episode coming up.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about? That's on you.
All I have written down is Bear versus Man, because that's been a fun thing to watch on the internet this week. You can also leave us a review on iTunes, like, TCHGFBJFK.
Oh my God.
JFC.
How is that a name?
It's not. I think they just smushed the keyboard.
Yes.
I love Hammond's research on religious issues we are faced with today. Hammond goes into much greater details about issues one would not even know had religious scandals for the general media not cover it. Hammond also talks about smaller local issues that don't make national news. Jessica at times is very good at pointing out views Hammond misses. I love listening every week.
Name one.
Like literally I did it 4 times today. Cool. That's very nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Do you want me to read a mean one? I haven't read a mean one in a while.
No, we're good. We'll see you in the bonus. We'll find things to talk about. See you
Okay.
next week.
Bye.